Shabbat Shalom again, everyone. For my drash tonight, I want to talk about how Jacob prepared for war and made peace in this week's Torah portion. And we can't forget the ending, because Jacob thought that Esau wanted to kill him, and he had good reason to think so. And Jacob believed that it was unlikely Esau would ever give up his thirst for vengeance. But we learn in the Torah that our enemies can surprise us, and there was peace between them. Jacob's focus initially was on preparing for war. And the first thing that he did was to divide his household into two camps, so that by separating them, he could give a greater chance for them to survive. And he isolated himself as volunteering to be the only one to be taken if it came to that. This should sound eerily familiar and relevant, because in Israel on October 7th, so many people split up in an effort to survive. On the morning of October 7th, Omri Miran, age 46, was woken up in his home on Kibbutz Nachal Oz and taken by gunpoint with his wife Lishai Lavi, age 38, and their two children. They were moved to a neighbor's house and held at gunpoint by Hamas terrorists. And as Omri was taken hostage, he made sure that his wife was holding their 6-month-old daughter, Alma, and he pushed himself ahead of them, separating them, and going willingly with Hamas in order to protect them. Another heartbreaking case of following Jacob's example. Itai and Hadar Berdichevsky, age 30, lived in Kfar Aza, kibbutz in southern Israel, about 3 miles east of Gaza. They had 10-month-old twins whom they hid in a bomb shelter, and they stayed outside the bomb shelter, partly to fight off terrorists, partly as a decoy against their children. They were murdered, and 14 hours later, Israeli troops rescued the babies, who were unharmed, and gave them to their grandmother. In ancient Israel and today, families prepared for the horror of war by dividing up. Jacob's next preparation was he prayed. Hatzileni na miyad achi Esav, ki yare anochi oto, pen yavo v'hikani em al banim. Save me, please, from the hand of my brother, because I'm afraid of him, lest he come and strike me down, mothers and children too. So the first act is protection of the family. The second act is prayer. And Jacob also offers presents. The attentive among you will note my alliteration. I tend to do that. I like to make things memorable. Protection, prayer, presence. So Jacob prepared against the war by sending a huge gift of cattle and flocks. May seem counterintuitive if you're expecting a war, but even today, Israel too offers incentives. 3 prisoners released for every hostage. Desalination technology to Jordan. Israel developed two amazing technologies, one kind of a very sensitive movement sensor, and the other involving AI and Google Maps, to detect red palm weevils. May not sound like a big deal, but red palm weevils destroy up to 50% of the date palm trees in the world. And part of the reason that the Abraham Accords were signed was because Israel agreed to disclose this technology to the Arab nations. If war is the stick, then material incentives are the carrot. The carrot for Egypt was the Sinai Desert, which Israel traded happily for peace. When Israel vacated Gaza in 2005, it left behind homes, greenhouses. It offered incentives for trade, food, water. Hamas stole from the people of Gaza, abused them, of course, brutally attacked Israel. When peace comes, and I use the word when, I think it will happen in part because Palestinians are incentivized not just against Hamas and Fatah for their corrupt leadership, but by and for Israel, because Israel is offering economic and political partnerships and hope for the future. The usual interpretation of this Torah portion is that there are really three forms of preparation: protection, prayer, and property. These are tactical, separate; spiritual, pray; and material approaches, offer goods rather than endure aggression. But there's a fourth form of preparation, I believe, in this Torah portion. It is sometimes considered separate from these other three, but I think it's best understood in relation to them. And that is the most famous part of the Torah portion, Jacob wrestling with the angel. This is the last P, personal growth and responsibility. In the Torah, the explanation that's given for why Jacob's name is changed from Jacob to Israel by this mysterious figure who wrestles with him is given as Kisarita im Elohim v'im anashim vatuchal, because you have wrestled with beings divine and human and shown yourself able. But that's really a stretch. That's a poetic etymology. The literal meaning of Yaakov is akev, cricket. And the literal meaning of Yisrael comes from yashar, straight. Jacob has gone from being crooked to being straight. He was a deceiver, he was a trickster, he cheated his brother, he lied to his father, he had trickery with his uncle, and he's finally had enough. And he's finally grown up enough that he's returning home, and he wants to return not as the crooked, heel-grabbing trickster that he was, but as an ish yashar, an upright person who walks the straight path. That too is preparation. The best preparation against any enemy is a strong and whole self. I don't think there's anyone who would claim that the divisions within Israel and among the Jewish people made it better prepared against Hamas. Being whole within the self, personally and nationally, protects us as much as prayer, as much as property, as much as sending the family in different directions, and maybe more.